Kesar zumbe dangda she tsembe se sunro sawe dogu miki duze gyu duje dama kune kurin jide sungi kongya be pima karbe tari darim dele peso kyang bugen sunumbe me dongbo ze gewe numre ranshe lungyo do tsenso peche rinden sokba we pima june dalo yi zara kyang minche ki ingi potana tesum sangi kungi koni Rangsim chigo ngo su denze pa tsawe lamme shabla sowa de ne lo topa kewa shenge lo tisum sange tamche ke ngo rida kengo gyatso ke kyabda kati lana machi ba penge lamme shabdul tima meba la gosum gupa chimbo gune chakse shin kyabsu che u chinge labdu so manam kada nyembe semje tamche tende lana mewe kupang la gobar chawa o nyembe chanchu chudu tukene sembar shu. So foremost, I want to request all of you to generate bodhicitta intention while you are in this session. So today's topic is about how to deal with the grief and bereavement followed by the loss of our closed ones or our own impending death. So at some point, we all face death, certainly as our own, as well as death of our friends, loved ones, and even strangers, right? So although we know that death is inevitable, but it remains a frightening and emotional topic to us. So it is certainly extremely stressful to contemplate on the death of our loved ones and our own imminent or impending death, and preparing for death is one of very crucial tasks in our life. So let me explain the emotional stages of people who have to deal with their own death or to deal with the grief of losing their loved ones through psychology and Buddhist theory. So as we know that according to this psychology, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross observed that those who are facing the death tends to move through 5 broad stages. The first stage is a denial stage. Second is the anger. Third, bargaining. Fourth, depression. And last one is the acceptance. So let me first explain a little bit on that, and let me then again merge it with the Buddhist theory or explanation according to the practices of Buddhism. So in the first stage of denial, as we know that in this stage, people resist the idea that they are dying, even though they are told that their chances of survival is very low or small, but they refuse to admit that they are facing death. Then, after moving from the denial stage, we land to the anger stage, right? So here, dying people, they become angry at the people who are around them, who are healthy, right? Who are in good health, and angry at the medical professionals like doctors, nurses for being ineffective, and angry at the God. So that's the stage of anger. So then after moving from that stage, it leads to the stage of bargaining. So in this bargaining stage, the dying people, they tries to think of a way how to postpone and defer their death, right? They may decide to dedicate their whole lives to religion if God saves them. They may say that if only I could live to see my grandchildren, if only I could see my son or daughter married, then I will accept the death. So that's the bargaining stage. And after that, they move to the depression stage. So when they realize that there is no point in bargaining, or when they see that bargaining is of no use, then they move to the next stage of a depression, right? So during the depression, they grieve on the loss of their loved ones or their own impending death. So, so in this stage, some people, they stuck to this stage for a very long time. They couldn't come, or they couldn't move on from this fourth stage. So if people, they could move from this fourth stage, then they learned to the acceptance stage. So in this stage, people accept the death. Usually, they become unemotional, uncommunicative. So it would look like they have already made peace with themselves, and they are expecting death with no bitterness. So basically, it's like kind of bit healing stage. So this second stage, anger, and the fourth stage, depression, during these two stages, people, they try to avoid to come to you, or they even though like they want to console you, but they feel uncomfortable to face you when you are going through the fourth and second stages of anger and depression. So that's why the people sometimes, they maintain distance from you, because they don't know what to say, and they don't know how to console you, So that's why most of the people, when they go through these stages, they feel very lonely, and they feel abandoned, so that's the reason, because like the people, like sometimes people, they are scared to come to you when you are in these stages. So it's important to keep in our mind that not everyone experience these stages in a same way. Vast differences occur in the way individuals react to the impending death. So now let's come to the Buddhism's theory of coping with the grief and bereavement. So if I abbreviate the strategies or the method of dealing with the loss and death, it can be condensed in three major practices. The first one is Buddhism introduces you the truth of suffering. Truth of suffering, especially the human realm's suffering, is all about the birth, aging, illness, and death. So these four suffering are the four major suffering of human realm, right? So Buddhism, it never, conceal the truth of suffering, even though we don't like to hear and talk about the death and illness and everything, but still, like Buddhism, when you enter into the world of Buddhism, it introduces you. But the introduction doesn't mean to scare you or to frighten you or something, because it is introducing the reality, the nature of this universe, the law of nature, the law of karma. So that's why, so the first practice or first coping style is to introduce the reality of the samsara. the suffering of this samsara, how the philosophy of our life. It's not exclusive for the Buddhism, but it encapsulates all over the universe. So the first coping style is to introduce the reality of the conventional world. And the second coping style is to introduce you that you can turn this adversity into a favor, into a favorable condition. So that's why in this second stage, Buddhism, it introduces you your innate potential, your innate good qualities that are embedded inside you. It guides you toward your positive qualities, positive emotions that are not bloomed, or they are yet to mature, or yet to manifest. So in that way, the second stage encourage us or guide us how to deal with the reality of this conventional world, whether it's happiness or whether it's suffering, doesn't matter. Now the third coping style is to commit to according to our resolution by getting into practice, but by analyzing, by learning, by contemplating on it, and by even through meditation. So these three coping style is the condensed practices of how to deal with the grief. But I can elaborate it, elaborate it in like different style. But for your understanding, so that you can understand it easier, I just abbreviate it in a short, so into a three coping style. Okay, now let's zoom into the Buddhism's coping style in extensive way. So here Buddhism iterates the ever-changing nature of existence through instructing the four ends of worldly matters. I hope you know about the four ends, which those four ends are very popular. So the first end is birth ends in death, such as the death of our loved ones, or our own death, which means to show that we can't live forever in the samsara. Then the second end is meeting ends in separation, such as the gathering of family members, friends. It ends in temporary or permanent separation or departure. And the third end is accumulation ends in diminishment. For example, you have to leave behind everything that you have achieved physically or materialistically when you are dying. And the fourth end is prosperity. It ends in decline, such as our youthfulness ends in aging, and sometimes a healthy life ends in illness. So these are the four ends that familiarize us to the ever-changing nature of existence, or we can call impermanence. Basically, it's known as impermanence. So these four ends, like, you can explain it in a different way, but right now, today, I'm explaining it by immersing it or merging it with a topic. So that's why. So it can be explained in different ways. So familiarizing oneself with these four ends with ascertaining conviction makes us actualize or realize the impermanence, of course. So it will result in building a high resilience power, dealing and acceptance power in us to tackle with the death. So Buddhism says that we are born to die and we die to be born again. Until we can break this karmic cycle, we have to take birth again and again, even though we don't want to, So we have to break this karmic bondage of samsara through liberation. So that's why the death is the door of entering into a new life, even though it's intermediate stage or a different kind of realms or enlightenment, So it depends on your own karmic consequences. So people who have trained their mind through understanding the reality of impermanence, they do not have to go through these 5 stages in a severe way, in an intense way. So it's normal to go through these stages or grieve moderately, but if it takes too long to come to the end of stage, then it means that we need help. It means that it's not a normal. So I personally think that these 5 stages are not exclusive for the impending death or loss of someone, but it occurs, these 5 stages occurs in every unpredictable circumstances, drastic and unpleasant changes that happens in our life. So these stages doesn't only have to be, explained through the death. So the mind training or on impermanence teach us how to accept the changes in our life. But the mind training on emptiness teach us how to collapse both the acceptance and rejection. Because acceptance and rejection both shares the one essence of suchness, one essence of voidness, or one essence of emptiness. So the practice of emptiness is more effective than the practice of impermanence to tackle with any kind of graspings, any kind of changes, sudden changes. But how? Impermanence, it manifests the duality, differences, changes, judgment, estimations of existence, while emptiness destroys the character of subject and the quality of object. So it destroys both the graspings toward the subject and object. So that's why the practice of emptiness is more effective than the practice of impermanence. Let me tell you the story of Sudatta, the patron of Lord Buddha, who offered a huge place to the Sangha community for their summer retreat in Shravasti in the central part of India, which is situated in the central India. So when this Sudatta, the patron, he was about to die, he invited Lord Buddha to his deathbed, and Lord Buddha recited the Heart Sutra, slowly sitting next to him, to remind him of the emptiness. So at that moment, when Sudatta was dying, slowly he was dying, he was in the process of dying, at that moment he can easily understand what Lord Buddha is reciting, what Lord Buddha is introducing to him. Because he feels, he witnesses that everything is falling apart. His body, his senses, his fortune, his family. So this teaching of emptiness was very effective to him, to Sudatta, because of his proper time when he was dying. Okay, now let me tell you another story of this lady Kisa Gautami. I hope you know about this story. So she came to Buddha and requested him to bring her dead son back to life by his power. But Lord Buddha taught her the lesson of impermanence by letting her observe the inevitable death by herself. And Buddha told her to get him a handful of mustard seeds from a family where death never happened, never occurred. So this lady, Kissa Gautami, she knocked every door but couldn't find a single family where death never happened. So that event taught her about the impermanence of death through understanding the death that happens to everyone. We can't flip that law. So the generalization of death, it is the lesson of impermanence of our life. So the impermanence of the existence or impermanence condition of our life is not the problem. The problem is that we can't go or we can't change according to the changes of impermanence. When we can't move correspondingly with the changes, then the problem occurs. Then the grief and miseries, everything, it happens. So that's why the impermanence of this samsara is not the problem. The problem, it happens, it emits from our side when we cannot move according to the changes. Because we don't like the changes. We feel insecure when changes happens, We always want to stick to the old pattern. We don't want it to be jiggled, So that's why. So once you are born or rise, whether it is living thing or non-living things, they are subjected to cease, subjected to die, which is the law of nature. So if we understand and realize the fact of impermanence, then we can easily cope with the death, not just the death, but towards all the unpredictable, unreliable, and changeable nature of phenomena. So we can, in that way, we can tackle with the adversities successfully. So the lesson about the impermanence and lesson on the emptiness, that wisdom can help us to mitigate the intricate and fearful feelings about the death. So, like a traveler, we have to keep on moving with the fast-changing world. If we stuck back to the past, then we cannot move on. So that's why we have to keep changing or keep pace with the impermanence. Furthermore, the specific cause and the duration of dying and the person's resilience power and their conviction about the afterlife, their age, their mindset, and the types of support they receive from their significant others. All these factor plays an important role on us, how we respond, how we react to the death. So being aware of the mortality, psychological aspects and consequence can make deaths less anxiety producing and perhaps more understandable. So the perception about the death can be influenced hugely by these two beliefs: religious belief and religious and non-religious belief. So religious conviction, they have their own explanation of how to conceive the death, how to deal, and the consequences of action after the death. So that the consequences of our action of karma that results in heaven, hell, intermediate stage, other realms, and liberation or enlightenment, and so on. So those who believe in afterlife, they happily embrace the death by keeping the hope to go to heaven or to get enlightened. If only they are satisfied with their good deeds and their devotions. But they can also be scared and depressed of negative consequences if they are not satisfied with their deeds. So religious people, they have both the positive and positive hope and negative fear because about the death because of their beliefs. For example, I have seen some people admitting that their parents are in heaven. They are looking from above. They would say they are looking from above and smiling at us. But the non-religious people's hope and fear is only limited to this very life. Sometimes they might repent on not believing in the God or not believing in the afterlife. Okay, now let's move to one question. Why do we feel pain by contemplating on death? The first reason is disappearance of self-identity. When we die, and losing the presence of our loved ones is the main or is the one of the cause of the fear of death. Because when we die, we have to leave everything, our identity, our body, family, career, name, whatever, property, and so on. So basically, we are losing everything that we have earned and achieved in this life by struggling. So more importantly, we are losing our presence from the family, from society, and from this world. So we feel like the end of our role in everything that exists. When we feel that our presence or our existence is being completely omitted or erased from this world, our pre-assumption and contemplation about death scares us, frightens us, because we are too acclimatized with the recognition of our presence, our appearance, our identity, our roles. So our mind could not bear the feeling of our own absence or the feeling of our close ones' absence. So in our everyday life, let me give you this example. Let's say when like people ignore us, that's the most annoying part, most annoying thing is when people, they ignore our existence, when they ignore our point of view, when they ignore our opinion or comment, so ignore means like demeaning, devaluing us, so it hurts our self-esteem. So it clearly shows that how we dislike the disappearance of our presence, whether it's with our partner, family, community, everywhere. So one of the cause of feeling pain by contemplating on death is the disappearance of our self-identity or disappearance of our presence. Then the second cause is the strong attachment and habit. So our habitual pattern, which is called pakchak in Tibetan version, our habitual pattern of attachment to the existence creates the frightening and unbearable feelings toward the death. Being physically and emotionally bonded with this life of materialistic existence habituated us from many lifetimes. So during Buddha's time, when Buddha imparted the lessons of emptiness for the very first time at Vulture's Peak in central India, some of the Asanga members, they couldn't bear the concept of emptiness. They left. Some of them closed their ears, So this void nature of our self-identity scares us. So that scares people who have strong attachment and strong habitual tendency to the substantial existence. And now the third cause is loneliness. The feeling of dying alone is also the one cause of the fear, People who are dying, they don't like the feeling of dying alone by leaving behind this colorful world and lively people. And losing the closed ones also creates the tension of loneliness. They feel more lonely when they see other couples, families gathering together. So this loneliness has always been the prime issue of our society for both the living and dying people, So in brief, it is mainly oriented with the lack of company for oneself. It's the issue of lacking the company of oneself. So that makes the death more painful. So out of these three causes, the fear of losing self-identity or presence, and the second cause, the fear of loneliness, these two kinds of fear, it emerged from the anger and sadness. While the third cause, which is the attachment and the habit, the attachment is basically a craving, and habitual pattern is a subconscious ignorance. So basically subconscious ignorance. So the fear, it arises from anger and sadness. Attachment is craving, and habitual tendency is the subconscious ignorance. So these three poison or these three defilements cause the pain to us when we contemplate on death. So self-grasping is the root cause of all these three defilements. Some people, they say that we can't live in this world without being clingy, being, uh, uh, attached to materials or attached to someone. So here I don't have to answer that because you can easily witness and you can easily see that in this conventional world how clinginess creates problem. Let's say in even relationship. If you become too clingy, your partner doesn't like it at all. They don't want to be stick together every time. They want their personal space. Right? So if we understand them and value their space, then it balances the uneven issue. So that was just a small example of being too much, clingy and too much grasping. So you can apply this example to every kind of relationship, the relationship between my parents and kids, employers and employees, property and property owners. Okay, now let's move to the second question. How to deal with the fear of death and pain or bereavement? This is very important topic here. So here, the first way of dealing is to have knowledge, to have a full knowledge and have wisdom about the truth of this samsara, the truth of our life. So that knowledge can lessen or mitigate the severe fear and grief. This knowledge helps us to broaden our understanding about our life. And this lesson is not taught to scare someone or to make someone uncomfortable or something like that. Some people say Buddhism's conventional truth about suffering of samsara worsens their miseries. Of course, Buddha introduces the reality of samsara, but Buddha also guided us how to execute our innate potential, our quality to cope with the samsaric problem. For example, when a company, they produce a product, they put disclaimer label on the product. But that disclaimer doesn't mean to intimidate others, but it is for our acknowledgement and precaution. So the lesson about the samsara is also about our acknowledgement, so that we can deal with this problem skillfully and successfully. So we human, we have intrinsic potential to love others. We have patience to forgive. We have insight of reasoning. We have willingness to change, sympathy, empathy. We have everything, but these qualities can't mature or manifest to the fullest until we enlighten ourselves by the wisdom. So we must seek the wisdom to bloom our best qualities, the innate qualities in us. So, this strategy, I should call it, this strategy to seek for the wisdom or to study about the truth of our life is very important, and it plays important role for us to deal or cope with the pain of death or grief. Then the second strategy or the method to deal with it is to accept, acceptance. Acceptance is the positive act of present, and a sign to, and a sign of willingness to move on for the future, and a sign to let go of the past. So the acceptance is the positive act of present. We can't avoid the reality of death and grief and pretend to talk only about the happiness. If acceptance is the only means to cope, then why don't we accept this circumstance positively rather than the negative, But now the question is how to accept the death. So accepting the truth by generalizing the death can mitigate the grief. So when we generalize the death, it gives us a relief that everyone has to die, It's just a matter of time. Everyone has to go through that. So that kind of generalization help us to accept the death in a positive way. So it will also convince us that no one can skip the nature of law. No one can escape from the mouth of death. So every entity that is formed has to cease. That is the law of nature. So everyone accept it. You don't have to be religious. Everyone accept that. So now the third coping style is to share. To share. Because sharing makes us stronger by making us realize that we have the power to give. We have the power to mend others. When we see the reason in our altruistic act, then this will make us fall in love with ourselves all over again. Share your hardest journey by writing, by talking, by listening, and by donating to the needy ones. The happiness we feel by sharing with others is immeasurable, memorable, and encourageable. So never close oneself or withdraw when you are going through the grief, but spread, propagate the precious love, the love of the deceased ones. We have to propagate it more and more so that the love can remain on this earth through others. So don't make the memory of the deceased ones painful to us, but instead make their memory cherishable, delightful when we remember them. For that, we need to spread love as much as we could. Don't limit the love and just don't make it confined only to few people. Don't make it too narrow. Just spread the love. It's contagious. So sharing, it enhances our self-strength, self-satisfaction, and self-esteem. Okay, now let's move to the fourth coping method. And this fourth one is to reflect on a positive activity in our life. Just reflect on the positive act that you have done so far. to feel contented, to feel satisfied. And be grateful. Be grateful not only to others, but be grateful to ourselves too. And forgive ourselves and forgive others. And be grateful toward our beautiful body and our beautiful mind that supported us till here. So for the deceased loved ones, be grateful to them for making our lives so wonderful, for being together till their end, and for making a lovely family with us. Okay, now let's move to the fifth coping style. Never let the hatred and our unsatisfied feelings hatch in our head and in our heart. Never let it hatch. Because during this sensitive period, because it will weaken us emotionally and physically. So never let this hatred enter in our head and in our heart. So during this period, we have to love ourselves instead of being uncontented with our acts or uncontented with our past, and try to love others instead of envying the living people, living people. So everyone is unique because of their karmic consequences. Everyone is unique. So is their lifespan. So instead of being envious and instead of showing anger or instead of coveting others on others' life, we have to accept it, that everyone has their own share of their karmic consequence. Okay, now the sixth coping style is meditation. That's a very important thing. So in meditation, we have analytical meditation and single-pointed meditation. So analytical meditation, it digs into every situation. It digs into it and it tries to observe, analyze the situation. And when you get the answer, when you come to a conclusion, then only go to the practice of single-pointed meditation. So basically, analytical meditation, it guides us toward the wisdom. It's the guidance of wisdom. Then the single-pointed meditation enhance our focus, self-control. So in that way, these two kinds of meditation, if we yoke it together, if we bring it together, these two kinds of meditation, and it produces the theoretical knowledge of truth and practical commitment to the resolution to overcome the bereavement. Okay, so now let's come to the practices of Buddhism, where we talk about the impermanence, emptiness, and how Vajrayana perceive the grief and how it deals with it. So I think most of you know about Ngondro, right? Ngondro, when we practice this Ngondro, we start with the practice of four mind training. So I hope you know about this four mind training. The first one is to realize, to realize that the human body is it has the full freedom, and it is the favorable condition to to put it into practice. So this yeah. So this first mind training about realizing the importance of human body, the human body that is conditioned with the freedom and favorable condition, that kind of, when we possess that kind of body, we should rejoice on that. So basically, this first mind training, it shows how to love ourselves, you know, how to encourage ourselves, and to realize how fortunate we are. So the second mind training is to understand the impermanence of death. It can be death, age, aging, or birth, and illness, everything that keeps on changing, those unpredictable changes. So here, the second mind training, it introduces about the grief and the loss of us closed ones, and everything it includes in here. So in this four mind training, it also shows that the impermanence is very objective, and it's very general, so it shows how to accept the ever-changing nature of existence. So the first mind training, it shows that it uplifts us, it uplifts us by making us realize that we are very fortunate to be born as a human being, and we have all those privileges and all those qualities, that makes us that discern, or that distinct us from other realms. Then the second mind training about the impermanence, it shows that even though we are privileged with this human body, and with subsistence, or with the availability of no, those luxuries and everything, but still those are changeable, those are tentative, those are unreliable. So this second mind training, it shows the unreliable nature of this human body, and the or the privileges of being human. So the third mind training, it shows the karmic cause and fruition. So the introduction of impermanence is not enough, So when you just introduce the impermanence and just leave it there, then it will make our life chaos. It will make our life messy, chaotic, because we don't know how to deal with it, how to come out with it. So during Buddha's time, like when the Sangha member, they were practicing the impermanence very intensively and extensively. During that time, some of the Sangha member, during his time, they commit suicide. Those those sanghas who have like who are very, sensitive and emotional, they couldn't bear the reality of impermanence. Then they committed suicide. They think that now it's like good to do suicide, instead of instead of bearing all the sufferings of samsara. So for those kind of people, first when they hear about the suffering of the samsara, that's not the end. They have to hear what next. What next we have to do, how to deal with it, So this third mind training, it shows the karmic cause and fruition, where it teaches us how to, how to act, and it enlightened us on action, not just a physical action, but verbal action and mental action that accumulates the karma. So that's why this third mind training is basically about how to deal with the impermanence nature of the samsara. So the fourth mind training is uh, perceiving or understanding the drawback of samsara. What are the downfall of samsara. So in that way, this four mind training, it trains our mind. Sometimes like in a retreat center, like according to the great master Khenpo Achu, according to his practice lineage, we practice this four mind training for literally 100 days, so to get acquainted with it, in a profound way or in extensively. So so the next stage that follows after the four mind training is then the practice of refuge taking, and the second, then after that comes the generating bodhicitta, then accumulating the Vajra Sattva mantras, visualizing Vajra Sattvas to clarify, mental affliction, and to clarify the negative habitual patterns of many lifetimes. So in that way, it goes to the Guru Yoga. After that comes the Mandala, and sometimes we insert the chair practice in between, and then ultimately it goes to the Guru Yoga. Then after Guru Yoga, then you enter into the actual tantric practice. So those four mind training and ngondros are the preliminary practice, right? So I hope you know about that. So in that way, when you enter to the Vajrayana stage, we should have completely enlightened and understood. We should already actualize, and we should already enlighten by the lesson of impermanence. So that's why when you don't, these days some people, they think that Ngondro are just the preliminary, it's just a number of counting the mantras and everything. So some people are not interested in that. But for those kind of people, I want to plead them, request them that the most important thing is the preliminary stage. You have to train your mind through these four mind trainings and everything, because in these four mind trainings, it basically trains how to equip ourselves when we are in this everyday life, when we are in this conventional life. Some people, they tend to jump to the Vajrayana stage. They think that that's the pinnacle, and it looks cool to be a Vajrayana practitioner. I don't know. So these days, those are trending. Those practices are trending. But for me, if I personally initiate my opinion toward you, then I would suggest you to go from start from the four mind training, and try to, well adapted with the four mind training. From then on, you won't face any problem, even though you are Vajrayana practitioner, Even though you are Vajrayana practitioner, you have to live the same life. You have to go through the same everyday life, and you have to go to job. You have to handle your kids and everything, The small hassles, stress in your life, you have to encounter it. So during that problematic time, what will you do? Just being a Vajrayana practitioner can't cope with these hassles and stress, So that's why I encourage, I emphasize my dear friends to first start your practice by contemplating on this four mind training, and so be true to yourself, don't try to escape, don't try to distract. So when you I don't criticize the theory of psychology, but I'm talking the reality that when you go to the because I have read I've taken the psychology classes and everything. So when I perceive on their management, so I see that most of the coping skill they guide are about distracting oneself. When you are grieving, distract yourself by listening music. So those kind of I don't know, this kind of distraction, it would be it will help that instant. But what about after that, after that? Because this death and everything, it's not a only one time event, you have to encounter you encounter death and grief everywhere around you. So every moment you face that someone you face, sometimes you face the death of someone, some strangers, death of significant others, so there's those death, illness are like kind of very common in our society. So if you want to learn how to cope with it, learn something that can be applied, that can be applied for long term, not just to distract for a moment. So that's why when you the analytical meditation, it excavates, it digs our miseries, everything. But during the first stage, we might feel that, oh, what's I'm seeing the negative qualities of myself that I have never noticed. So you can feel that kind of like you feel bit disturbed. But that's the reality, that's the stage you have to go through. So then you have other stage to move on. So sometimes the people, they stuck to the analytical meditation, and they feel like that, oh, now Buddhism is very scary. It tries to introduce to the very those unpleasant occurrence situations that we usually try to avoid, the thing we usually try to escape from that. So that's true. Buddhism, it excavates everything that's happening inside our head. Every problem, it excavates. But then it guides us how to deal with it. And the dealing and how to deal with it, and the dealing equipment it doesn't come from outside, it doesn't arise from outside, it doesn't pass from outside, but it emits from inside. It manifests from inside, because we have that potential to deal with it, but it's embedded inside. We just have to, put it on the surface. So that's why the understanding, some people, I don't know, sometimes like when I talk to people and, they would question more about emptiness. What is emptiness, and emptiness, this and that. So for them, I literally tell them that first learn about the existence, then concentrate on the emptiness. First learn about the existence of what's happening in our daily life, the conventional status, the conventional stages, the conventional occurrence. First try to learn that and try to acknowledge that and try to understand the reality of this conventional world. Then go into the second stage of exploring the emptiness. So that's why to seek wisdom about both the truth, not just about the ultimate truth, but also about the relative truth. To have full knowledge of the true truths would be more effective to deal with any kind of, circumstances, any kind of adversities you face, not just about this grief and loss. Okay, now, so in Buddhism, the practices of Buddhism are preparatory method to deal with the samsaric circumstances, problems, and how to achieve the enlightenment by breaking through that, So Sutrayana, if I distinct or differentiate the Sutrayana practices and the Vajrayana practices, Sutrayana's practices are constituted or executed by both our mundane mind and enlightened mind. It can be practiced through both. But Vajrayana practices are only based on the implementation of primordial wisdom, which is the enlightenment mind, which is the natural state of our mind. So that's why, when you are Vajrayana practitioner and you feel, and when you have to face with the sufferings, different kind of sufferings, try to beautify whatever you see. Try to beautify whatever you hear. Try to beautify whatever thoughts occur in your mind. It's all about beautifying, which means to purify, So in Vajrayana practice, like Vajrayana practice can be categorized into three: Mahayoga, Anuyoga, Ati-yoga. So according to the first stage of first stage of Mahayoga of Vajrayana, it's all about visualizing the deities, right? Visualizing the deities and chanting mantras and converting our mundane mind into the natural state of our mind. So there's also practices of chet, the cutting of chet, where you have to cut off all the self-grasping or to cut off all the mundane thoughts, mundane vision, mundane speech, thoughts, and everything, right? So according to the Mahayoga, it's all about purifying the entity, purifying all the existence, and purifying not just the outer existence, but also purifying and beautifying the inner thoughts or mental factors, emotional factors, and everything, So when you have to deal with these grief, loss, bereavement, and sadness, or sometimes like shock, or sometimes depression. So those are the varieties of emotional state, right? So all those emotional states, you can't fight or tackle or convert one by one. It will take your lifetime to convert every negative emotions into positive. So the easiest way or the right way is to understand the essence of Vajrayana, which is giving you the message to understand the primordial natural state of our mind. Just to be natural. No facade or no covering and no pretending and everything, just to maintain the natural state of mind. So that is the pinnacle pith instruction of Vajrayana, especially of the Dzogchen. right? So right now I'm not gonna talk much about this dzogchen because like it has to for that, you know, you need usually I don't teach much about the dzogchen on online, you know, so that's why, yeah, I can only just go up to the Mahayoga. So Mahayoga, so if you have the intention to turn the grief into a favor, or turn the adversity into favor, the best thing is to apply the practices of Mahayoga by when you act, you know, when you act or when you move, when you act and when you move, do it with love, you know, do it with love. And of course the compassion has to be there, but whenever you move or whenever you know, our five senses, it works, do it with love. Whenever you speak, speak with love. That's the mantra. What's the meaning of mantra, you know? The meaning of mantra is to turn the mundane qualities of speech or word into the essence of emptiness. So when we speak, you know, speak with love, speak with kindness. So that's the mantra. We can't spend a whole day by sitting and chanting rosary, mala, because we need to talk, we need to listen. So in our daily life, when we listen or when we talk, those can be also applied to our practices by speaking with love, you know. When you listen, listen with love. When you think positively, think with love and kindness. So when you are Vajrayana practitioner, when you think with love, that love is not a conventional love. That love is the love that exceeds the boundary of love and hatred, which means this one is the third love that surpasses the duality of love and hatred. When you have the with instruction to practice the practices of Vajrayana, then when you love, when you be kind to people, it is difference. It emits immense energy. It's quite different from the mundane love. It's quite different from the mundane kindness. We have to understand that. So that's why being a Vajrayana practitioner, when you are done with daily session and move to your daily life, whenever you act, whenever you speak, whenever you think. So these are three roles of activities, right? So always do with love and kindness. So that is the that would be more effective in your life, you know. So usually when we meditate, there are two stages: meditation stage and post meditation stage. So post, what does mean by post meditation stage? Post meditation stage is when you are engaged with your daily life activities, you know. So the grief and loss, if you want to fight with those grief and loss, or if you want an antidote to those two kind of feelings, we need love. Love is the only way to tackle with the grief. And so the love we have, the mundane love, the mundane life usually we initiate is the love with boundaries. You know, it's not unconditional. It's only supposed to be for some people. Only there would be a circle, you know. So when you practice this love that surpasses the conventional love, that love knows no boundary, So everything it execute, it has to be a love and kindness. So that's why the most effective way to deal, as I have mentioned here, like many strategies to tackle with the grief and loss, but most effective way is that we have to love. We have to love. We have to break the perimeter, or we have to break the boundaries that is only confined to some people. And when you lose that some people, then you become disoriented, because now you know how to love, because your love is, it used to be only toward those people who are around you, and you have, and then you feel like lost, and you don't know, you don't know how to now project the love. So that's not the right way to love if you are a real practitioner. Okay, so in Vajrayana practices, in Vajrayana practices, it, when we practice the maintain the primordial wisdom. So to maintain the primordial wisdom, first we have to understand the primordial wisdom, which is the natural state of our mind. Then we have to sustain that wisdom in any circumstances of our conventional life, Then we have to develop it further. We have to make it more stable by maintaining it even during unpleasant times and problematic situations. In every situation, we have to sustain that wisdom. So in that way, it will develop further. And gradually, the duality of life and death will dissolve. Gradually, the duality of samsara and nirvana will dissolve. So all those dual perspectives will dissolve and immerse into the fundamental basic space, which is the Dharmakaya. So that is the, ultimate or pinnacle practice of Vajrayana to tackle with the grief. Otherwise, there's no special or like specific way to deal with grief, loss, sadness in Vajrayana. In Vajrayana, most of the practices are based on how to based on how to apply this wisdom, the wisdom that is inside you. When you when you unveil that kind of wisdom, then it naturally it subside. It what do you call, it will exterminate all the negative, all the emotionals and negative events and everything. So that's why Vajrayana is considered a very easy skillful method, and it introduced easy method, skillful method, and it's also known as the very effective vehicle that introduced the effective method, right? So so that's why when you go to grief yoga or something, like, sometimes people, they join yoga, and they even join the different projects and programs and event. Once you attend that event and workshop, or like yoga or whatever, you feel like, oh, I know everything now, I know how to do it. But once you come out, then you are back to the normal. That is very understandable. So instead of that being in a posture, maintaining a posture like that, instead of that, whenever you move, move with love, move with positive energy, emitting positive energy. Whatever act you do, it doesn't have to be a posture, Whatever act you do in your daily life, try to emit the positive energy. Try to remind yourself. Try to remind yourself that, you have the potential. You have potential to emit love. You have the potential to propagate love. You have the potential to share. So in that way, you feel that makes you a very special. You feel a speciality inside you, which will hone or enhance a potential. So in that way, gradually, people, they become a bodhisattvas, They can't become bodhisattva in one night, in one go. Because like when you, receive the wisdom and we contemplate on it, and when try to apprehend on it, when try to realize on it, then you actualize how powerful I am. I can make a big difference. So in that way, the strength, bodhicitta means brave hearts. You become brave heart by learning that I have the power. Otherwise, when you don't learn or you don't notice your power, then how can you be brave, You don't see the reason for that. So that's why generate the bodhicitta, first we have to acknowledge our power. And the power is not to subdue someone, not to oppress someone, or the power doesn't have to be a commanding or something, but it has to be love. Because when we love someone, when the couples, like when they love someone, they buy rose and flowers, they treat them to show their love. When you show their love, then only you can persuade the other party to love you back. So even the capitalistic people, like they have to, when they produce a product, when they supply it to the audience and people, even for them, they have to, when they advertise, it should be advertised in a way that people would love, to attract people. It should be initiated by love. So love is applicable not in just relationship. It is also applicable in the capitalistic business world too. So without love, so love is the best equipment to attract people, to make yourself better, to come out of the grief and loss. So so I think I should conclude here. So so the love, so if you explain it in a simple way, the love can transcend all the positive and negative perspectives of grief and happiness of this world. And if you think from the Vajrayana practice, the practice of primordial wisdom can transcend all the dual perspective of grief and happiness. So this the Vajrayana practice about the primordial wisdom, it is not tilted toward the one side. It has no side, It dwells. It surpasses all the dualities. So there is a no side or not, the extremeness in it. So that's why it would be best if you could, if you have instruction of Dzogchen, then it would be best to maintain the natural state of mind to overcome this grief and loss. But if you don't have that instruction, it's no problem. Just emit the love that that comes from understanding. love that comes from unbiased understanding, uncorrupted understanding. That love can surpass all the kind of grief, sadness, loss in our life. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, thank you everyone for giving me your precious time, and so thank you TLC for giving me this opportunity to share some of my knowledge. I don't know it's that much effective or not, but I tried my best to do that, and let's conclude this session with aspiration prayers and dedication prayers. Okay. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those who on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a trees of miracles, and for the boundless multitudes of living beings. May I bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and sky, until all beings are freed from sorrow and all are awakened. At this very moment, for the people and nations of the earth may not even hear the names of disease, war, famine, and suffering. Rather, may their moral conduct, merit, wealth, and prosperity increase, and may good fortune and well-beings always arise for them. Alala ho. Jambal ba chidar kimba da kundu sambu teya deshindu deda kungi jeso dalo je gyawa dida thamje rabdo ngo thesum shikbe gyawa thamje ki owa khana choto ngawai dagi gewe sawa digyun gya sambu je rabdo ngo warki sonamdi thamje sikpani thomne nyebe danam phamje de kega na ji balon tupai sibe solendo gun rowa shu semje ne ba chinye ba nyudu nele thargyu jun rowe ne nam malu pa takdo chungwa me sure. Thank you so much. Have a nice weekend, all of you.